Since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia has launched several military campaigns into neighboring territories and countries. These include 2 incursions into Chechnya in the 1990s, the country of Georgia in 2008, and Ukraine in 2014, which resulted in the annexation of Crimea. Some experts believe these campaigns could help us understand where the current war in Ukraine is headed. For more, I'm joined by Margaret Peacock. She's an associate professor of Russian history at the University of Alabama. Margaret, welcome. Thanks for joining us. There has been a lot of comparison drawn between the 1994 Russian invasion of Chechnya and the current war in Ukraine. Can you tell us more about what happened then and how it might relate to what's happening now?
So there are some similarities that we can see between the two. There was an expectation in '94 that it would be a quick invasion, that it would be a quick regime change, orchestrated relatively, efficiently with minimal loss of life. And in fact, it became a massive quagmire almost instantaneously. There were heavy civilian casualties, especially famously in the city of Grozny. The bombing of Grozny was the heaviest bombardment of any city since the firebombing of Dresden in the Second World War. But also it happened in small towns in Chechnya, like in Samashki, just like we're seeing happening in the smaller cities in Ukraine now. It resulted in bitter urban warfare. It lasted a lot longer than anyone had expected, certainly longer than anyone in the former Soviet Union had expected. There were also a lot of dissimilarities, I should point out. When this happened, when the first Chechen War happened, there was a lot of widespread defections happening among Russian soldiers. There was huge political instability in the Yeltsin government. There was more democratic social structures in Russia itself since the Soviet Union had just collapsed, and there was the emergence of a civil society that was capable of levying criticism on the Yeltsin government. Sadly, we don't see any of those forces at play right now.
Well, we know Vladimir Putin had a role in Russia's second invasion of Chechnya, as well as its conquests in Georgia and Crimea. How might have those victories played into the mindset of Putin and other top Russian leaders heading into the invasion of Ukraine?
And forgive me, I'm a historian, but you can go back a lot earlier than that. We could go back to Crimea in 1853, to the Crimean War. There was an expectation even then that, because the Russians had beaten Napoleon in 1812, they would have no problem beating the weakening Turkish Empire. The same potential hubris is at play now, where there were assumptions. I think Putin went into this current crisis with assumptions that Russian military force would overwhelm Ukraine really efficiently and quickly. And again, this is going to end up being a pretty serious indictment of the Russian military, that they haven't been able to come in and sweep through as efficiently and quickly as they had expected.
So with that in mind, then, given how things have gone so far for Russia and Ukraine, and based on your knowledge of Russian history, how do you see the war in Ukraine ending?
If we had a magic ball to give us that, it would make things a lot easier. I think, sadly, we probably are facing a war of attrition. We are facing more horrible death. I mean, I hate to say this, but the historical perspective is pretty clear. We're going to face this continued use of civilian death as a mechanism for terror, which, by the way, the Russians used in Syria. And that happened pretty recently, and yet, and pretty effectively, right? So the killing of civilian populations isn't just a willy-nilly sort of random violent act by soldiers. It is a state-sponsored policy meant to create terror among domestic populations. We'll either see a regime change, exactly as Putin has planned, or if the West and Ukraine get its way, we'll hopefully see a brokered peace, which would be a victory for Ukraine. Anything other than a regime change would be a victory for Ukraine. That said, we probably are not looking at, we'll put it this way, we probably are looking at Ukraine losing Donbass and Kharkiv. Unlike Crimea, however, in 1853, where Britain and France got involved, I don't think that we're seeing any future Western involvement, military involvement, to actually curb Russian aggression.
It's a sobering reality and a sober picture you paint. Margaret Peacock. Margaret, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.